Hello, it's Holly Scott here at the AdvaMed conference with my friend Peter Van Haur of VitalConnect.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. I'm so glad you're able to make a little bit of time for us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter, you got a great story. I'm excited to share it with the audience here because we love, as you know, innovative organizations, and VitalConnect is certainly a darling of a story and love to get into that. But before we do, tell us a little bit about your history and what brought you here, because you're Covidian and AGA, St. Jude. What was it in your history that brought you to VitalConnect? Tell us a little bit about that story.
Sure. My experience is really 25 years in medical devices. My very first job out of school was at Covidian. At the time it was Kendall Healthcare, which turned Tyco Healthcare, which then turned Covidian. And I was very fortunate to get out of University of Massachusetts and immediately start as a sales representative in Boston. And so I have seen medical devices from the early 2000s until today. In my course of my career, I've really spent it primarily in cardiology. So about 7 or 8 years at Covidian in various roles, sales, marketing, and in fact, vice president of sales. And then I had an interesting opportunity from actually an employee of the Mullings group, Mike Moore. It was doing a search for AGA, which was a small startup out of Minneapolis in the structural heart space, and they had an attractive offer that I was able to take advantage of, and I was able to see the other side of medical devices. So private equity, Welsh Carson was running that business at the time, and I was able to spend 3 years at AGA until St. Jude acquired AGA, and spent some time at St. Jude, about 8 years, and touched a lot of different areas of healthcare. And St. Jude, as you know, was bought by Abbott. And I saw that take place, and from there I went on to Cordis as general manager of the Americas. At the time, Cordis was under Cardinal Health, and I spent about 3 or 4 years at Cordis, and then received a phone call similar to the phone call I received from Mike Moore from a different individual saying there was a CEO job from a little company out of San Jose. They have a really novel technology and an interesting technology, and they'd like to speak with you. Truth be told, I really was going out to California thinking that there was a better chance I would not take this job than there was that I would take the job. And for one reason, didn't know if they would like me. Number two, I didn't know if it was a good fit for me, and did I really want to go to a company with zero revenue and really starting from scratch. But I had a wonderful, wonderful encounter with Dr. Nursi Nazari, the founder. He shared with me the technology, and I immediately realized that we could do something with that technology. And so, you know, things led to things, and I met with the board, and they ultimately offered me the job in July of 2019. At that time, the company maybe had 40 individuals, primarily engineers, working on the technology, getting the FDA clearances, and they were ready for the commercialization of the product. And 5 years later, we sit today with a very successful organization, commercially scaled, rapidly expanding and growing in the ambulatory cardiac monitoring space, as well as outside of that space in the general remote patient monitoring space. And I couldn't be more proud of what we've created and where we sit today. I think we have about 300 employees. We're across 25 states. We're servicing 45,000 patients on a quarterly basis in the ambulatory cardiac monitoring space, and another, you know, call it 500 to 1,000 patients in the general remote patient monitoring space of the business. So it's been a great 25-year career, which as I sit here today, I feel very fortunate to be able to lead a company like VitalConnect and to work with the people and have the support of the board and the investors that have supported us along the way.
Amazing. What timing to get into that organization. And we'll definitely give Mike Moore a shout out for giving you the bite on startups back at AGA. So you had that little experience in your pocket that doesn't go away.
No.
Most people get that and they think, okay, that was fun. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So 2019, very interesting time in patient monitoring, remote patient monitoring, and cardiac monitoring. I mean, the stats today are that it's, gosh, what, $14 billion market, cardiac growing at 20% annually. I mean, this is insane growth. And you weathered, this is what I believe makes VitalConnect so interesting, is 5 years in this space is like, you know, talk about dog years. You have really been through it. When you walked in, you saw the you saw the opportunity. So were you helpful with the founders in creating that vision and how you were going to really approach the market with a successful entry point, and how did that come to play?
Yeah, I would say I was very helpful in shaping the direction of the organization as you know it today as VitalConnect. When I walked into the organization, the thesis of the organization at the time, the business model, was to create the environment of the hospital from a monitoring perspective, but allow that patient to rehabilitate or receive that monitoring outside of the four walls of the hospital. So the Vital Patch is a very novel device. And inside the Vital Patch is what we refer to as the Vital Core processor. It's an ASIC chip, which is application-specific integrated circuit, which essentially allows us to do a holistic monitoring of a patient. Everything from the ECG to the heart rate, the variability, the respiratory rate, the core body temperature, step count, movement, and an algorithm on that chip for fall detection. And the intention was to really create a hospital-at-home environment. And that is what I walked into. And the thesis was strong. I think we can all agree that there is a need out there for that. But what I realized after trying to create that in the vision of the early founders and investors was the technology was further along than the market was at the time. And it was going to be a long path to create a company on that thesis that is serving patients and also importantly generating revenues to sustain the business. That technology, I recognized very quickly, could also serve a very important market, the ambulatory cardiac monitoring space, where there had not been a lot of major innovation. It is a large and expanding market. I believe that our technology was differentiated, but importantly had nationally recognized CPT codes. So it really covered the three pillars of importance of medical device. Is the market large and expanding? Is your technology differentiating or solving an unmet need? And is there a value proposition where a hospital or a customer is willing to pay, or a reimbursement code? And it checked all three of those boxes. And I said, gentlemen, we need to change the direction here. And in 2020, we made the decision to enter the ambulatory cardiac monitoring space. Took us about a year to put all of the pieces together from a structure perspective. We had to set up an independent diagnostic testing facility. We had to get cleared through Medicare. We had to change some things from a systems and servicing perspective. And we launched the very first patient in January of 2021. Now that's an interesting year because, as you can recall, that's really when COVID hit. And it's hard enough to launch a technology in med device. Our technology is an ambulatory device, which means the majority of these prescriptions are done in the physician's office or these outpatient clinics, arrhythmia clinics, etc. So when you have social distancing, it's really difficult to cold call a physician's office with a new novel device when really they have a technology on the shelf that is getting by. They're using something that they know and have been using for a while. So launching a technology in that time frame was very difficult. We figured out a way to do it. We were very successful in doing it, and we ramped and we grew rapidly even through those challenges. And as we sit here today, we've had 15 quarters now of sequential growth, somewhere between 4% and 6% consistently every single quarter for the last 15 quarters sequentially.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
So you had, it sounds like COVID was both a headwind and a tailwind there, right? Yeah.
It was.
So when, I'm curious, would you tell us about that first placement, that first sale?
Sure. I have a picture of it. I'm in San Jose with a mask on, holding the box. We got a picture of it, and we sent it out. It was a patient in Maryland, I believe, and the physician was a physician that we had the ability to get access to. Our first sales call was on Zoom. We were able to demonstrate the technology over Zoom, and because our platform is based on a cloud-based system, which actually today you will recognize one of the main features that significantly differentiate us is the fact that we are a cloud-based system which allows for a HIPAA-secured URL, so physicians have access to the platform and our system 24/7. So we were able to remote in with these physicians, log into the secure URL, and basically show them this is what you would see in a remote fashion for your patients. So our demos with these physicians were actually using our vital signs on our system, and we'd say, Doc, imagine I'm your patient, I'm wearing the patch, and we'd kind of show them the patch on screen. Here's what you would see on the back end, and they'd have their computer screen up, and our ECG would be streaming live on their phone, on their computer, and they've never seen anything like that from any of the companies out there today. So it actually was very, very impactful because they were thinking of a world where maybe we're remote forever. And how am I going to care for these patients? And this company is bringing me a technology that I'm talking to them on a Zoom, but on my phone, I'm looking at the individual's ECG streaming in real time. That was powerful. And you know, we began to build off of that, and that was our first physician sales call, and things led to things, and here we are.
Here we are. It's so interesting, and I want to come back to your initial point, because so much of our audience are innovative companies and they're looking to success stories for advice. But you started with the 3 core building blocks. You saw a clear path, that clear clinical need, the path for reimbursement, and you were able to translate that message to the clinician population that could use it in a digestible way. Using yourself as the patient in the scenario. I mean, little things like that go a long way. You can tell a physician all day about how great your technology is, but if it doesn't translate to need, you know as well as I do, and you know better than I do, it's not translating to sales.
That's
you know?
right.
It really has to cross over. So remarkable. So here you are, sales 1. And how did you think about expanding your commercial offering and starting with cardiac? It has so many capabilities. How do you refrain from getting lost in the possibilities?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, getting lost in the possibilities is certainly something that VitalConnect was not immune to. In the early days, and when I was there in 2019, you can imagine the possibilities when you have a technology that has the capability of monitoring so much in real time to anybody, anywhere, in any walk of life. So you think about the consumer market, you think about the sports market, you think about the hospital at home market, the in-hospital market, the market we're in today of ambulatory cardiac monitoring. We were in conversations, and I've had calls with Roger Goodell's office when COVID was happening and the NBA was in a bubble down in DC, quarantined. There was discussion about monitoring VitalConnect of all the NBA players. We've been in discussions with politicians, with the Javits Center back in the days that they were looking at pop-up hospitals. The people that I came into contact with throughout the COVID height and otherwise, because they see our technology and their mind immediately wanders. And we as an organization need to be very careful that our mind does not wander, because we start focusing on everything versus doing one thing really, really well. So what I've tried to instill in the organization is focus on 4 key executable objectives. The first, now that we've established ambulatory cardiac monitoring as our one thing that we are going to do very, very well, we want to drive our revenue 25% or higher year over year. We want to continue to grow the gross margins within that business to market best. We want to maintain an appropriate operational expense line. And we want to, fourthly, establish that we can create a secondary revenue stream, a third revenue stream into additional TAMs, call that inpatient monitoring, hospital at home, clinical trial work, without taking our eye off the ball of the main prize right now, which is the ambulatory cardiac monitoring business, which investors have underwritten to debt providers have underwritten to, and what I believe will ultimately provide a successful exit for this company. Define that as you will. So yes, we could get very diluted in our thinking in terms of how we approach the market with this technology. So we need to take a step back and do our core business very, very well, but also showcase and demonstrate the ability to do more. And we ran into that in the early days. We were chasing every shiny object, and we really had to bring it together.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and again, getting back to kind of headwinds and tailwinds of the market, 2019, 2020, 2021, unlike anything any of us had seen in the marketplace. At the same time, though, even if you take COVID out of the equation, you've got the interest in getting people out of the hospital sooner. You've got demographics that we're looking to democratize access to. There's a lot of interest in opportunities to allow for better information at home. So there's been a lot of market entries. Some people say CRM is a crowded space, right? CRM is but the challenge comes back to, when I really peel back the onion, knowing where I sit, is if you're not hyper-focused on what you're going to do really well and do get caught up in the what ifs or what could be's, you end up getting off track, and it can pull you back, because time, especially in young companies, time is money, right? So yeah, it's remarkable that VitalConnect's been able to stay the course. So when you think about continuing that growth, you've got some aggressive goals to continue to grow. Did you say 25% annually?
Yes.
How in the world are we going to sustain that?
So it does seem aggressive, and I believe that our team is capable of doing that. I think we have the best technology in the market. I think we have the most effective sales force in the market, and I think we position this company from a market access perspective across the board with the commercial payers and our position with Medicare to be able to execute against those goals that we've set out. Here's the reality of this space, which is incredibly exciting for me and also very attractive as to why we entered it. We talk about $2 billion of opportunity. That's the TAM. It really follows the path of growth of atrial fibrillation and other arrhythmias that occur. There's about 22 that are in the game that people are looking at. But to put that in perspective as to the runway VitalConnect has, there are roughly 6.5 million people that will be prescribed a cardiac monitor for the purposes of picking up on arrhythmias or atrial fibrillation or other abnormal cardiac heartbeats. We're only servicing about 200,000 of those patients today. So the runway, that's just the United States. The runway for us to go from 200,000 to 6.5 million people is, I don't want to say infinite because it's 6.5 million,
Sure.
but the runway for us is incredibly long.
Yes.
And it's only expanding for us. We have become the 5th largest ambulatory cardiac monitoring company in 3.5 years in the world, in 3.5 years, with 27 salespeople in 23 states in the United States. That small footprint in the US with a very limited sales force has become the 5th largest ambulatory cardiac monitoring company in the world. We're the number 3 mobile cardiac telemetry company in the world with that same footprint, and our growth is growing 2 times our competitive comps that are publicly available for us to see. So now that we have a fully in-network commercial presence across the United States, what that means is that 80 to 85% of the United States patient population is covered by their insurance carrier when they walk into their doctor's office and a doctor wants to prescribe VitalConnect. 80 to 85% of those patients are covered with their insurance carrier. That is a huge barrier that we had to get through over the last 3 years. We've been selling at a disadvantage. We've been selling in an out-of-network environment against our competitors in an in-network environment, which makes it really easy for the doctor to prescribe it the other way. Despite that headwind, we still grew as fast as we grew. Now we've leveled the playing field from a commercial perspective. So I think that's going to be a tailwind for us. Secondarily, we're going to double down on our sales force. So, we have 25, 27 people today. We'll probably grow another 10 over the course of the next quarter or two, and then we'll see where we get after that. So we're going to double down on the sales force. We have the commercial carrier barrier that's gone, and the market is just so wide and so big, and it's growing so fast. I think those goals are lofty, yes, but I think it's certainly in our ability to execute against.
I'm hearing that our best days are ahead of us.
I think so. We've weathered some storms.
Yeah.
We've weathered some storms. We've done all this in a difficult capital environment. We've done all this in trying to finance the company to a stable place. Proud to say that we've been able to do that, and we're in a position now where we can just put our heads down. We can execute against what we need to execute against, and just go out, take share, and grow this business.
Excellent. Well, it's exciting to watch you on this journey and be part of it in partnership with you. This is a huge growth opportunity. And I know we talked about hyper-focus, but just lastly, because I'm curious, you do know the power of this platform better than anyone. Outside of cardiac remote, where do you see in healthcare this could potentially add the most value? Yeah,
it comes down to the three pillars I talked to earlier. Where is there a large and expanding market? Where is there an unmet need in healthcare, or where does your technology differentiate from a standard of care? And can you create a value proposition, or is there a reimbursement code? So when you survey the landscape of what our technology affords us in terms of where we can compete, where I see a tremendous opportunity is the following. There are 30 million patients on an annual basis that will be admitted to a hospital every single year. There are 800,000 beds in America that are non-ICU, non-tele, non-psych, et cetera. They are just general service ward med-surg floors, 800,000 of those. So these 30 million people that are admitted to the hospital are typically admitted for observational purposes. They've had routine surgeries that they need to rehabilitate for 24, 48, 72 hours, and it's an all-comer floor. Now, of those 30 million, the statistics are, and the New England Journal of Medicine published this, 7% of those patients that are admitted to the hospital will have a preventable adverse event that creates two things. One, economic burden to the healthcare system, and two, obviously negative consequences for the patient from a clinical perspective. They're bucketed in four areas. Drug overdose and underdose, and I mean the IV that's hooked up to them and the patient's allergic or what have you. Two, surgical complications. You have an abdominal surgery, you get up to med-surg, lo and behold, somebody had perforated a nick, you have an internal bleed, and that needs to be addressed. Number three is human factors, where you have nursing error or what have you. We're human beings, and mistakes happen in hospitals. And lastly is hospital-acquired infection. We're in hospitals, people are sick, we're around one another, hospital-acquired infection happen all the time. These four areas are the largest drivers of the cost and the clinical complications for those 30 million people that are in the beds. Now, what happens when all of that is happening? These patients are decompensating. But before they begin to decompensate, the vital signs change. The respiratory rate increases, the heart rate changes, the ECG changes, the core body temperature increases. Why? Because the patient is fighting something. They're fighting that internal bleed, they're fighting that drug overdose or underdose, they're fighting whatever it is that's happening, the infection. And so what our technology can do is to monitor these patients, send data to the cloud, take analytics that are predictive analytics, and we can begin to show that a patient is decompensating before the point of clinical issue, and we can begin to intervene earlier, reducing cost and having a better clinical outcome for the patient. That's what we're working on from a development standpoint, and we believe we can begin to showcase some demonstrable results that are meaningful in the marketplace, that could be that secondary revenue stream for those long investors or those people thinking about what's 5 years look like for VitalConnect. That's the development efforts. Without taking focus off cardiac, that's a secondary opportunity that I believe is a significant TAM, significant opportunity, and VitalConnect uniquely positioned to serve that need where others really can't.
That's a huge unmet clinical need. I can appreciate that, and great to hear that we're focused on that. Well, Peter, I certainly appreciate you making time today to spend with me and the Dragonfly organization here, and sharing with our audience that follow us, especially on the innovative side, what those building blocks have been to be successful. Just lastly, how's the AVIMED show been for you?
It's been great. Yeah, this has been the cherry on top, so thank you. But no, it's been great. I've spent maybe 24 hours here. I came in yesterday, here today, and then I'll head back to Boston. They have a hockey shot over there, and I'm a hockey guy, so my first conference with a hockey shot. So I'm enjoying it, and it's been great. It's been great. I think this will be a conference I think I put in the schedule for years to come.
Let me tell you, it's only grown in ours, and it's a must attend every year for us. It's been an incredible show, and it's funny to have it in Toronto for the first time. So,
yes. Yeah.
Well, again, thank you, and to our audience, thank you for joining us today. Enjoy AVIMED.